So thanks everyone for coming. Of course, this panel is going to be looking at successes and lessons learned from serving the national and mid-market. In terms of sort of how we define that, we're more talking about the enterprise's actual sort of reach, as well as sort of a level of service provider and company that has needs that are limited within a certain country or limited to sort of the smaller end of the market. So a lot of companies that fall into that range. And really, we're just going to talk about how service providers serve these companies, what's been happening in that space during this past year, and sort of how we can serve these people better. So I'm going to turn over to sort of the panelists now to sort of introduce themselves, their company, what they do, what sort of customers they serve. So why don't we start with James, if that's all right?
I'm just coming off mute. Yeah, afternoon, everyone. So James Albiges, I'm General Manager for Networks and Comms at Zen. I'll talk a bit about Zen in a minute. But as General Manager, I'm basically responsible for developing the business and developing the portfolio. Zen is, and it started off as an ISP about 25 years ago. It was grown organically since then. Based in Rochdale, in the north of the UK, about 500 staff, various different divisions. I work within the enterprise space. We have about 20,000 business customers, and within that we have probably about 150 to 200 customers that probably sit into this national mid-market bracket, and we provide a range of services, some connectivity services, some IPVPN, traditional networking services, cloud comms, yeah, that whole suite really. So that's me. That's a little bit of an intro on Zen.
Okay, Sacha, why don't you take it away for us?
Yeah, thanks very much, Finbarr. My name is Sacha Gera. I'm the president and co-founder of Kandy.io. Kandy.io is a 6-year-old venture within Ribbon Communications. We're in the process of spinning out from Ribbon under a parent company known as ABCT, and we hope to close that deal by the end of the year. Kandy.io is a white label multi-tenant platform as a service, helping tier 1, tier 2 carriers and ISVs get to market quickly with UCaaS, CCaaS, and CPaaS offerings. We're kind of the plumbing underneath and help our partners get to market quickly. Some of our customers in terms of carriers include a number of tier 2 customers, as well as tier 1s like AT&T, ISVs like IBM, and global players like Etisalat in the Middle East. Thanks for having me here today, Finbarr.
Okay, great. Last but not least, David.
Thanks, Finbarr. Yeah, hey everybody. I'm David Cargill from the Vonage product team. Those who don't know, Vonage, we're a software company. We're no longer a communications company. We're a software company. Listed on NASDAQ, we provide unified communications, contact center, and API tools, to service our customers globally. And those customers, they range from micros right up to large enterprises. But the sweet spot is really what we're talking about here is delivering products and services to that mid-market segment. Thanks.
Okay, and I see our last panelist has joined just in time to introduce himself.
Yes, hello. Sorry, I had a few issues joining. I'm Andrew Halliwell. I'm Product and Technology Director for Virgin Media Business.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to say a little bit just about how you serve this part of the market and what your services are?
Yeah, no, sure. So for UK national and mid-market, we are established communications and solutions provider. So traditionally doing data networking, voice, unified comms, more recently heavily in the SD-WAN market space, and also UCaaS, CCaaS, and a broad range of solution partners. Our market focus is really on joining those solutions together to help our customers deliver business outcomes. So significant emphasis in public sector and regional government, as well as the medium to large UK national corporate from a sector focus point of view.
Okay, and while you're talking, Andrew, I mean, are there any sort of trends that you're seeing from these customers? Do they have common challenges that you've spotted?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess I think that the challenges fit in 2 categories that we work with regularly. I think the first category would be around how our business clients or public sector organisations get their infrastructure and operations to be more flexible. shifting slow fixed infrastructure to being flexible networking and cloud operations that can adjust to what in 2020 more than any other year has been a massively changing market that's tested the flexibility of our clients' businesses and infrastructure and operations. So I think there's that side of things that we see customers looking at technologies like SD-WAN and cloud, looking at, can I use this to give my business more agility, more flexibility, accelerate my digital strategy, and feel less constrained as a business. And then I guess the second major theme is about employee productivity. How, particularly through the lens actually of remote working during or post-COVID, how do our business customers or public sector organizations really embrace those tool sets, not in a reactive way, but in a way that's really supporting productivity through what's it used to be a supporting tool set, is now 100% of a colleague or employee's experience of working for a business, and our clients using the right range of tools and approaches to really release that productivity benefit. So those are the two big drivers we're seeing in the mid-market at the moment, making infrastructure more agile and flexible, and using UC cloud and collaboration technologies to release productivity opportunities in a remote working employee base.
I think that makes sense. So flexibility and productivity. Does anyone have any others they think probably belong there as well? Or?
Yeah, Finbarr, maybe it's Sacha here. Maybe I can add just one more. One thing we've seen in the national market, similar to larger multinationals, but on a smaller scale, is as these transformations are happening and are sped up, especially with the pandemic and the emphasis on going digital, we're seeing a growing need for one back to pack. We're seeing partners and enterprises who are saying, geez, I've got a different vendor for transport. I'm using a certain platform vendor for collaboration, a different one for UCaaS, and maybe something different for CPaaS. I'm trying to get off of fixed line and go to SD-WAN. And we're looking for one back to pack that can kind of deal with the plethora of vendors and the complexity of these transformations. And so that's a growing trend. It's complicated to go do this, and especially when you're under the pressure, of remote working, happening in such a small amount of time. I think there really is a demand out there for vendors and partners that can do it all and be accountable for getting the project done. But that's what I would add to this discussion.
I think that makes sense. I mean, David, you're more of a specialist provider of some sort of technology. Would you agree with that you just need to provide more and more, or do you think there is a limit where you can just focus on your expertise now?
Well, first of all, I like Sacha's talking about one back to pack, while one throat to choke. It's much more positive, but we do get used to that. I think the biggest thing, the trend here, Finbarr, is it's getting repetitive to talk about the pandemic, but the reality, it has absolutely changed everything, and the new normal that we're seeing, it's here for good. Customer behavior, including like home working trends, these were anticipated for 2030. Analysts were saying working from home would be kind of much more acceptable by 2030. Well, that's come forward 10 years, and that is so significant. And that's the biggest change that we're seeing. So, when this thing hit, our customers, our UC customers, could pivot seamlessly to working from home overnight, because they had all the collaboration tools built in as their end user. They had the video chat, calling, and meetings, everything there. They were using a desk phone, but they just went home, left the desk phone, got the video, and turned the video on for the first time. I mean, we have calls with colleagues and the rest of it with the video on. We never did that before March.
Yeah.
So that's been a big change. But we also have a lot of contact center companies. I mean, you talk about pivoting an office-based contact center to work from home. That is complicated. Yeah. That's challenging. And that required a lot of hand-holding, but we did it. And I think they then found, phenomenal improvements in productivity. And I mean, looking at our own contact center, so, I'm not speaking out of turn here, our productivity has shot up. Working hours are longer. And what's really strange is nobody's taken holidays are going sick. Sick days have virtually dropped. So working from home, I mean, we know there's some challenges with it, and employee kind of well-being is a really important area, but it is basically a lot better for most people than wasting an hour or so each way going to work. And so the productivity has really increased. And I think this has helped bring what Vonage does, we've got these three areas, UC, CC, and CPaaS. It's really brought those together, and it kind of reinforced the commitment we had to developing those tools and products and services, that it actually does make a lot of sense to have them all together, because customers can say, take a UC system, bolt on CC, get the API to bring in a bot or something, and really get some additional productivity and improve the customer experience.
Okay, so you really think that integration of multiple services has been a big deal for you as well, as sort of one of the things that's allowed you to succeed during this period? Are there any other?
It's a differentiator, I think the kind of single pane of glass aspect, it means that customers and users can get on and do stuff quickly and easily without having to really learn new stuff. I think that's a key area here, because if you had to really support all the end users, either from our own contact centers or customers' own IT support teams, they couldn't do it. It all happened too quickly. So you had to spend the time to make sure that your products and services were really easy to use. Make that technology hidden under the hood, but super easy to use. And then it works for everybody. It works for the customer. It works for us.
Yeah.
I think there was an interesting new urgency in reaching some of the business outcomes around some of the areas that in UCaaS and CCaaS. And I think what we're seeing as well is a more of an interest from our customers in looking for either shifting from best in breed to more best in suite. So this buying behavior where, because the customers need outcomes quickly in this context through the massive change in working practices driven by COVID, they want reassurances that the services and solutions work together to deliver the outcome, as David mentioned. I think the only other piece that we see, and it's probably because of where we sit in the market, we do see an interest from customers wanting to have assurance that a network connectivity layer can be delivered and rolled out alongside that UC and application layer, but that might be the part of the market we play in. So the reassurance that as well as having the great application experience for UCaaS and CCaaS, that we have a network that can be rolled out, typically SD-WAN for most of the new customer transformations we're doing, that can provide that application assurance for those services as well.
Absolutely. James, we haven't heard from you on this. Do you have something to chime in with? You've been nodding along.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I'd pretty much agree with everything that's been said so far. I think the last few months, I agree with what David said. It's been transformational. I think a lot of the changes that we've seen were happening anyway, but they've been accelerated. And I think the challenge over the last few months has been almost multifaceted, and also almost through different phases. I think, a lot of the changes happened very quickly. So we had to be fleet of foot and support customers in quickly changing the way that they were working. But then actually now the challenge is more about actually starting to plan for the future, where there's still quite a bit of uncertainty. So I think, yeah, we're on a journey with customers. And also, I'd also share what David said as well about, some of the challenges that we're helping customers with, we've had to face internally, in terms of moving contact centers to a remote way of working, keeping that application performance, keeping that productivity up. I think, yeah, I'd pretty much echo everything that's been said. I suppose the other thing I'd say is just going back to Andrew's initial points around flexibility. I think it's also about reducing complexity, trying to simplify things so that when these changes happen, they can be you can react to them quicker, you can react to them more effectively, and you can plan more effectively for the future. And also it frees up the IT teams within organizations to be able to work on that, as opposed to just sort of keeping the lights on. So I would put complexity and reducing complexity right alongside that point around flexibility.
Absolutely. It's something Cavell has seen in its research as well. This last year we asked people, what's your most important network criterion? Almost everyone said, well, cost is all that matters to us. And suddenly we start asking the same question, and we start seeing answers. Well, it's ease of use. It's how easy is it for my employees to get access to it. It's how well can I do it remotely. and suddenly cost just drops down to like 4th or 5th instead of being the top priority, because it's not just about paying for it, it's how do I switch it on. So I guess then shifting from sort of trends and things like that, I guess and trying maybe to move on from COVID, though obviously it's still going to have an impact on discussions, and think about what are the new opportunities in this market. You know, are there new technologies they're going to want? Are there just new ways to package what we've already got that might start appealing to them? Who wants to dive in first on this?
I think we're seeing some interesting growth opportunities going into next year around, and I completely agree with James's point on simplicity, by the way. Yeah, I think that kind of agility, simplicity meets a new generation of application, collaboration, other applications working effectively for this part of the market is crucial. I think one of the things that we see as a growth area is cloud security meets application performance. You know, as customers move really significant amounts of their operating model into cloud and new types of technology, actually, you know, that creates really interesting pressure points and opportunity for new technologies and approaches on security and application performance. And I guess that's partly spoken to by SD-WAN as a theme, but also secure web gateway, SASE models, and some of these security models, which at one hand used to be, you know, quite a complex part of a separate domain, but in line with James's observations of introducing simplicity, actually how those things are delivered and done together with security, we see as a really significant growth line both into 21 and 22. And I think particularly given that, you know, the market has shifted so much with digital transformation and tools very quickly, we're expecting the next phase to really need shoring up from both a security and application performance to make that sustainable, scalable, you know, and not leave big gaps and risks going into operating models as we, you know, get this new normal balance that's been introduced. So I think that's one growth area that I'd highlight.
Yeah, I'd echo that in terms of what we're seeing from customers is, you know, talk about security, but, you know, we then took that to the next step and built all of our VoIP is now TLS and SRTP secured as default. But more than that, you then look at the data streams, you think, well, how can we compress them properly using Opus, using other good technologies? Because everybody's going over the top. So you want to be able to build that in. Now, the customer doesn't really care about many of that stuff, except you say, like, secure and it works. You know, so under the hood, there's a lot going on. And we leverage that, but also it's the reliability is key now, because people are absolutely relying. So we've got in our system, we built it out with obviously totally cloud hosted, but also spend a bit of time and energy getting the auto scaling working. So as you hit the peaks and troughs, especially with video, you're scaling out laterally and automatically. And that gives you, that gives you the ability to say, yeah, we can do 5 nines, and we do it because we've invested significantly in these areas, geographical failover, and that, you get them to trust you. And then you try to get all the certifications to back that up, the PCI, all the rest of it, 2701. So I think, the customer, when we get at the table, the table stakes are, yeah, you got to prove what you're saying, and you got to prove you got all the features. So the one is the one back to pat from the throat to choke, and it works. It works 24/7.
Yeah, if I could just add to David's comments, we're seeing three kind of trends in the market. I think the ubiquity around UCaaS, CCaaS, and CPaaS, having one platform that can do it all is an important trend. It often starts with one and progresses into another. The other thing we're seeing is, there's a bigger drive towards usage-based models, pay for what you use. That might be per minute. It doesn't have to be a per user per seat. That's another big trend. But the one I'd probably amplify a little bit more, that's kind of here and now and very prevalent across our customer base, especially in the mid-market, is around SD-WAN. And we're seeing, we all expected SD-WAN to come in, but we're seeing a lot of our customers drop the dedicated MPLS circuitry, go to the SD-WAN, and it's causing a lot of new challenges too. When we come in, there's a lot of lessons learned there on, how do you deal with non-deterministic networking? David's point, are you going to rely on the codecs like Opus and VP8 to go and do its thing at the application level? Or, when you have more complicated features in the voice and telephony space, one of our customers, very large retailer in the US, 5,300 stores, you end up in situations with signaling storms and other things that would never happen in an MPLS network that we're learning to cope and deal with and plan for in advance. So the SD-WAN trend, I think, is here, and I think it's going to take a lot more engineering and planning to get that right.
Yeah, I guess I'd just add to that and echo again pretty much what everyone's saying. I think we're all in violent agreement. I think application performance and using SD-WAN to address application performance is key. I suppose one of the things that we've really tried to focus on is trying to focus SD-WAN on key use cases. So as opposed to just taking it as a new tool and trying to apply it across a network as a sort of means to answering all the problems, look for the key use cases within a customer's environment. And that might be around remote working, for example. It might be around increased cloud usage, but looking at those key use cases and focusing in on those and looking at more of a hybrid approach and more of a phased approach to SD-WAN as opposed to necessarily just implementing throughout the estate. And that's quite interesting because quite often customers are coming to us and actually they've got a clear want for SD-WAN across all their estate, but actually their needs are more refined than that. So I think I agree on it with everyone else. I think application performance and SD-WAN are key opportunities, but for us it's about really focusing in on those use cases in implementing it.
I think that's an interesting point to raise, because I mean, a lot of the discussions that are happening around SD-WAN are about how it optimizes applications, how it optimizes networks. And we saw at the start of things that have been happening this year that there were some attempts to bring SD-WAN into the home working environment. It didn't really take off because the hardware costs were still too high. And, you know, I'm trying to find people who've sold it en masse to a lot. And they have those specific use cases that you're talking about, James, where they'll deploy it for a small percentage of their user base. But having seen wide adoption, it's sort of one of the earlier panels was asking the question that for this market, is connectivity good enough? If I make better connectivity, does that fix most of the problems? Or do I need to start using that new technology more widely?
I think we see a bit of a blend of that answer. You know, I think the point on delivering business outcomes through the SD-WAN, yeah, I think we've moved well beyond kind of hype cycle territory into show me where it delivers the business case element for SD-WAN, and which is great to see. You know, it's a proper growth market now, delivering at traction, having had possibly a few false storms over the last 5 to 10 years. And you know, our emphasis is, as James highlighted, actually, is, you know, in helping customers explore the business case through a proof of value exploration on you know, how for their particular business and their particular connectivity challenges and their particular applications does the business case work, exploring that, showing that working on a temporary basis for a few number of sites, and then helping them roll out across the estate. We're finding that's a really successful model for some of our wins in the market. And then I think alongside that, you know, I think we do also offer you know, a level of a hybrid approach. Back to Sacha's comments about shifting from deterministic networking, we do, as well as offering some best in breed kind of SD-WAN technologies, we do also offer some underlay QoS for some sites. So if for a campus or a data center or a key site, we want QoS in the underlay, we can combine that with a more pure SD-WAN technology for branches, remote sites, etc., which, you know, again seems to be getting traction with a number of our clients.
Yeah, I echo a lot of that. I mean, we're, you know, as a UC and CC service provider, you know, specifically, I mean, the great thing with SD-WAN is it enables us to tell our customers, yeah, sure, bring your own network, you know, and so we don't have, they have that, you know, monkey on their back, manage their network, but we've got the SD-WAN approval, you know, a confirmation that we are getting, you know, low latency secure connectivity. And it's also worked phenomenally well for some delivering into, we may say, tricky countries, you know, totally regulatory compliant, you know, but there are challenges in some of the places around APAC, and SD-WAN has been a real enabler in there. But just to pick up on Sacha's point, you're talking about, like, you know, the benefit of pay per use. Actually, we're seeing the converse now, because we're on inclusive deals, you know, including landline, mobiles, apps, conferencing, everything rolled in under one pay per model. And we're actually, you know, some customers getting quite heavy charges just to pick up that extra bit of, say, some of the Teams elements or some other elements. So we're seeing actually rolling everything into one decent price is helping us win deals, because it's easier to understand, easier to budget, easier to manage. So it goes both ways, that one. Pay for use or inclusive.
Yeah. There's probably a materiality piece, isn't there, that you're seeing customers wanting to bundle more into, packages from a per minute billing. Now that's seen as, but actually at the higher end where they're wanting to work with a partner to deliver benefit, say in an SD-WAN transformation, I can see how both models can be growing at the same time at different ends of the market or different parts of the challenge.
Yeah, I guess in a way it comes back to what we talked about earlier around flexibility. There are different commercial models, and some models work for some customers, some work in some sectors, and I think it's often about flexibility. So you can focus on that per user, per site charge, and wrapping everything in. But actually, that works actually for lots of customers, but not for all. So I think contractual flexibility and pricing flexibility is key as well.
Finbarr, I'm just going to go back to SD-WAN for a second here.
Okay.
I think, one thing around the SD-WAN is we're growing up, this demographic's growing up in a time of internet time, right? 3 nines, 4 nines. We're all used to Netflix. My kids use the word glitching, right? Oh, the internet glitched. And the truth of the matter is, what's surprised me over the last 2 years is even mission critical organizations in the SLED market, for example, are adopting SD-WAN, and it blows me away because 5 nines is just not as important as it used to be before. And I think the reason for that is that there's multiple modalities of communication. If your phone fails, your soft client fails, or your API fails, you can pick up your cell phone, you can message. You literally have 10 or 15 different ways to communicate with people. And I think because of that, we're more accepting and more forgiving of a 4 nines or 3 nines experience. And, we're growing up in a generation that's been built on that. Glitching is a normal part of our day. So, that's where I think SD-WAN's taken off because the business case is there, the ROI is there. But, it is a hybrid world. I think to the point made earlier, some folks will continue down the MPLS or do a bit of a hybrid to go into certain geographies or branch plants and be SD-WAN. Whereas others are going to take, a lot more risk and saving a lot more money by going all the way and relying on more modalities of communication and self-healing and other things like that.
Just a little point on that, Sacha. You're absolutely right what you're saying for outbound calls, but we handle customers' inbound traffic. I mean, that's gold dust. There is no tolerance there to lose one inbound call. That's the problem. If they're trusting us with that call center and it's coming to one number and it could be, 1,000 channels or something, it's just got to work all the time. So they are more forgiving on outbound, but not on inbound. Always worth remembering that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to make. Internal communications get a lot of flexibility and slack just because, how much did you really want to talk to your colleague anyway, So I guess the question, tying a lot of these things together in terms of what the future of the market looks like, there's a lot of stuff happening in terms of competition. There's a lot of vendors who are making more scalable platforms for things like network as a service. We obviously saw the explosion of stuff like Zoom and the calling space during COVID, and that of course led to people buying directly from Zoom. But also you could imagine a system where people like VeloCloud have a solution that can scale up and down, and they're just bypassing service providers. So I guess the question is, are you more concerned about competition from these, we'll call them more scalable solutions, just bypassing you and going direct, if they just work when they're plugged in, for example? Where's the role of the service provider in that easy switch on market, I guess, is the question.
I'll give you a little insight to that, I think, from our point of view, because take a contact center. You can go to Twilio and buy all the bits you need to build a contact center. It's advertised, hey, do it. Well, we run contact centers, so is that a challenge? Well, actually, we know there are 42 different call forwarding conditions. It's not just get a call forwarded. If you're going to do it properly, 42 different conditions. I mean, who would have thought it? So yeah, you can go away and buy that stuff, but are you really going to build such a rich, flexible system as a specialist will provide? So yeah, you can go out and do stuff, but there's always a limit to that. Now, if you're a specialist developer, like Uber or something, and you want to add some calling features to your apps, great. Twilio's got those products, we've got those APIs that can do that. But when it comes to actually competition to our core products, even from, Amazon's moving to contact center, Microsoft's getting into UC, this is all happening, but we're seeing still gaps in their offering compared to the specialists. They'll probably close those gaps, so we got to keep moving as well. But the specialist, if you really know your niche, you really know your market, you add a lot of value.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's about knowing your customers and being close to your customers, being close to your existing customers, being close to your potential customers, and just really understanding, what their pain points are. And that's what some of these larger competitors probably can't necessarily do. They're not as close, and they can't bespoke and react to their requirements, and they haven't got the professional services capabilities, potentially the software development capabilities to be able to bespoke for a customer that's in this mid-market. They might have for the larger customers, but this mid-market has a particular set of needs. They've probably got fairly smallish IT teams. They're fairly under-resourced, and if you really know that market and you really know the customers you're going after, I think they need service providers, and they want service providers. So I don't see that the threat is increasing from those larger providers.
Yeah, James, I'll just add, I think there's really three approaches to the market. To David's point, I think there's a specialist niche role. Some need advanced call features, and might need advanced video or messaging. And we all have our craft and our niche, and that's one route. And certainly the larger over-the-top players are probably not going to spend a lot of time there because they're going after the masses. The other route is, the one back to Pat. The carrier provides the transport, they have the billing relationship, the procurement, and they want one person to kind of take care of it all in one bundled price, like we've discussed on this forum here today. And that makes a lot of sense. From a procurement and contracting perspective. We know sometimes with enterprise, it could take 2 years to get a contract. That doesn't bode well for some of the over-the-tops out there. But the other third one is that there is a class of enterprise out there that wants best of breed. And they're going to have 5 different messaging tools, and we all have 10 different collaboration tools on our desktop and mobile. And it's a best of breed world. And our philosophy is, especially acknowledging that Zoom, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Google are going to have a substantial market share, no matter which way you look at it. And they do own a part of our mobile and our desktop, and having that integrated experience is not going away. So how do you complement and coexist and add value to that ecosystem is a third tenet of our strategy. And we're not going to ignore it. As an example, doing direct routing as a service from Microsoft Teams for off-net calling is a part of our strategy. We want to play in that. We don't want to compete with them.
Co-petition.
Yeah, co-petition. Good one.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it is comforting because Microsoft have said several times that they have no business nor keen desire to become a service provider in every single country they operate in the world. So there is a little bit of comfort there that they may not be coming for all of the business. They may just be coming for some of the backbone, I think.
Yeah, I think they seem to be lining up more to support service providers as a channel to market in their strategy, but not exclusively, obviously. But I think they see a future supported with service providers rather than just in competition with. I think, as per Sacha's comments.
Yeah, we've been surprised as a UC provider how much actual routing we do with Teams. How many of our customers use Teams, we're integrating it. And so they're using Teams for part of the UC package and they're using us for the other bit. Took us all by surprise. Significant part of the business and growing.
I mean, are you still finding that? Is that like a successful partnership then, would you say, for service providers serving this market, getting closer to Microsoft, making it more of an integrated approach? Do you think that's the business model of the future then, or?
Well, if you got a customer and they've got a significant investment in that and they want to extend it, that's where we've been fitting into that picture. Especially maybe the contact centers. They've got a whole Teams infrastructure. We got one customer is using it globally. They're not going to move from that. But when they're looking to extend the capability, then they say, "Can you guys plug in and do this with it?" Yeah, we can do that. So it's back to that competition.
Yeah, and we're in similar alignment to that, David. I think we see real growth opportunities in having strong, effective API and integration points into MS Teams and different parts that are ubiquitous, at the same time building that breadth of solution or specialty, whether it's for contact center or UC or into network, deliver a broader solution with the customer intimacy that James highlighted, of understanding how for a particular mid-market customer that needs to be delivered in their market.
Yeah, there is one concern that I have heard from several service providers though about the rapid changing pace of technology, just in terms of skills, how like the skills that these people have to have in-house. I mean, we talked a lot about how SD-WAN's rapidly becoming a thing, how security concerns are growing more and more relevant. And obviously not all service providers that serve this national and mid-market have the resources to have security expertise, network expertise in-house. Are you seeing that there's more and more pressure on service providers to in-house these security capabilities in order to serve, say, as a one-stop shop or as a place to go to get that capability as well? And are they having to become more network and security aware, or is that something that they're outsourcing in terms of technology?
I think I'll take that first. It felt like a service provider question, so probably if I start on that, I think that there is definitely a challenge in cycle time of software releases for multiple domains as you face the market as a kind of next generation service provider, and that's partly we need to face into the way we're evolving skills in digital software release, service release, and security, but also it's working with our partners in supply chain in a different way. So working in best of breed technology partners in particular domains that can also provide evergreen software release for part of the supply chain where that's not all being developed from scratch. And we've certainly moved away from the previous telco world of develop a product like MPLS, put it in the market and leave it there for 10 to 15 years to sell against. The services we've put to market now in SD-WAN or UCaaS or CCaaS or security are requiring quarterly, if not monthly, releases, feature release, service, security release. So we're either building that into our own operating model, or more commonly, actually, we're working with strategic technology partners in our supply chain, similar to those represented on this call today, to make sure we have that kind of evergreen capability for the market. But I think that is definitely a real-time challenge to make that evolution, Finbarr.
Yeah, Andrew, I'd just add, the carriers today, not all, but some are throwing in the towel and saying, hey, we're just going to be the utility provider, the pipe provider for 5G or SD-WAN or whatnot. And part of that challenge is, A, the over-the-tops are stealing the lunch, but B, there is a squeeze on the skill sets out there. The number of folks, who have that deep telecom end-to-end solution expertise, the networking end-to-end. And let's face it, the last 20 years, a lot of the millennials coming out of school, some of the best and the brightest have gone out to work for the over-the-tops, and it's been harder for the telecoms to compete. And we do think that the telecoms have a key asset here, not just the billing relationships, the procurement. I mean, they have the spectrum, they have the pipes going to the home. But in addition to that, I think what is a win-win for both sides, and this is where we try to come in as a platform, as a service, is saying, hey, look, we need the economies of scale. You focus on your relationship, your billing, focus on the product, the governance of the vendor, but let somebody else come in with a multi-tenant platform that you can share the economies of scale of. And that's kind of our proposition at Kandy, is what we try to come in with the carriers, saying you focus on product, you focus on the sale, let us engineer and operate a multi-tenant system, and let's share in that increasingly scarce set of solution and end-to-end skill set. And I think that's only going to get more prominent as time goes on.
Yeah, I think it sort of builds naturally on what Andrew said before about working closely with a whole range of providers to provide those platforms, and actually getting to the skill set within your organization to be able to have a productive interface into those other organizations. And I suppose in terms of building the skills, my view is that a lot of the new skills that we need within organizations like Zen, actually they're not that new. They've developed over the last few years. I mean, if you looked at it versus a few years ago, they would new, but they have developed over time. Obviously, things have changed in the last few months and things have accelerated. But a lot of those skills are the skills that certainly we've been skilling up over the last few years. And yeah, I agree in terms of working with partners rather than suppliers to to get to that level of knowledge and alignment to be able to provide the right solution for customers. So you need the skills to get to a point where you can have that productive interface rather than trying to do everything yourself.
I guess a slight different spin on that from our point of view as a UCCC service provider is that we took the kind of the traditional telco stacks and just broke them down to microservices. So you end up with some really bright developers that can then agilely change little services as we need to react to the market. So it gives you much quicker speed to market, much more agility. But you've got to do that big bust up first of all. It's like when we heard that story about the algorithm that screwed up all of the original COVID predictions. It was written in Fortran, and it was about, a megabyte of code or something, and of course they couldn't adjust it. However, if you that's that one extreme, but people are still doing that with these big monolithic systems that are very intransigent, very difficult to work with. So with this market, you got to be really quick, got to be really agile, break it into your own IPR. At least that's what we do. So we're completely responsible for it, and then totally agile to respond to this ever-changing market.
I'd agree with that. And I think one of the interesting places where we're seeing a lot of differentiation from our research and through our discussions with enterprises directly is that a lot of the times what service providers are bringing to the table is technology skills from partners, but also soft skills. One thing I think you'll find quite interesting is one company we spoke to said that what they'd actually had to do was try and figure out which of their employees were more extroverted and which were more introverted, and actually sit down and plan out using different solutions how they were going to communicate best over video or just texting or just messaging the introverts, but then calling the extroverts more regularly so that they had to, have those touch points. And I find this sort of thing where it's like a service provider with knowledge of a certain industry could say, well, no, actually, but we know that majority of people in this industry, say, for example, if it's an events company, are mostly extroverted. This is how you need to be calling them, and provide cultural advice, which I think would be quite interesting.
A little bit Big Brotherish there, Finbarr.
or I don't know, helping rather than.
I suppose sort of another sort of interesting take on that is about a cultural fit. So it might be about having extroverts versus introverts, but it also might be about almost like having a customer and a supplier, or a whole value chain of suppliers that have a certain cultural fit. And that's certainly something that resonates with some of our customers, is the sort of culture that we have and how that resonates with them. So, for example, B Corp is an interesting sort of take on this. That as an organisation, we've got to the B Corp certification, and actually that does open up new conversations with other organisations that have that same certification, because it's almost like an ideology. So I wonder whether that's another take on that, Finbarr. So you can look at extrovert versus introvert, but you can also look at almost organisational culture and how that, how it gives a different perspective.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think people want to buy from people that they think understand them. They think they understand, their problems and their challenges in their industry in a way that, a vendor in California may not be able to interact with in the same way. But there's that layer in between where the carrier or the service provider comes in and provides that understanding of your challenges. So I guess we're wrapping up in sort of 2 minutes. Does anyone have any last hot takes or advice to service providers and companies dealing with challenges in this market that they'd like to leave?
I think I think James's point is quite a good summarizing point, actually. I think finding the right cultural fit in the service provider or relationship that fits where you need to go with the business. I think exciting space, both from a shift in technology and opportunity for the mid-market, and the shift that the kind of post-COVID market represents. But I think finding partners that you can work with to deliver the outcomes across technology domains or services, it feels like a great opportunity both for customers and providers.
All right, I think that is a good point to leave it on. So thank you all for coming. And of course, thank you to the audience for coming along as well. And just as a reminder, so this will be available recorded after the show for any future thoughts. And of course, if you have any questions and follow up after the show for watching this video, you can feel free to get in contact with me or anyone else at Cavell, and we'll be sure to sort of answer your questions and maybe ask some of the panelists if it's relevant to them what their thoughts are on the questions too. So, thanks everyone for coming, and I'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks, Finbarr.
Thank you.